I want to talk about what I believe is the single biggest difference between League and Dota when it comes to the strategic aspects of the game. It's why people playing League sometimes feel the game grows stale, and why Dota feels so impossible to understand for new players. From champion and hero roles to itemizations and macro movements, League tells you how to play, while Dota lets you choose for yourself. Writing the script to this video feels like the final accumulation for my roles comparison series. Everything I've talked about, from the very first video comparing Ashe and Drow Ranger to the most recent talking about Bounty Hunter and Pike, will be relevant here. You won't need to have watched those to get this one. For those of you that have, you will see the patterns. So, what sets these two juggernaut games apart? Let's talk about the freedom of play. The freedom of play is the freedom to choose how to play. What role will your chosen champion or hero have in the match? What items will he go for first or second? Who are you going to counter from the enemy team? When will the early game end, and what objectives will you take first? Every strategic choice in the match, big and small, adds to the overall freedom the game can provide. And every time the game takes away your choice, it is a sign of its control over you. Let me show you what I mean. What does a match of Dota and a match of League look like side by side? Time to choose our character. League of Legends has an ordered select phase round. You pick the champion in player order on the screen, alternating between both teams. You can only pick your champion on your turn. On Dota side, players are allowed to pick their heroes in any order they wish. You can pick your tanks or supports early, or let the supports choose their heroes later on for more powerful counters. To get the same level of draft expression in League, players would need to request to swap pick orders, which doesn't always work out. Let's talk about the heroes for a bit. When a new Dota hero is added to the game, the community doesn't really know which roles they can play in. Their spells offer some hints in their scaling, but does that make them a good mid? A good support? Maybe an ADC? Weeks are spent experimenting, trying things out until a meta is formed, and even then it's quite fluid. Take for example the heroes Muerta and Marci. Muerta has a sort of a crit and an ultimate that gives her a ton of attack damage. So, would it surprise you to learn that ADC is her off role, with her main being a support? Many ADCs with good crowd control can be played as a support pretty comfortably. You see a bunch of this in Dota, such as Riki, Sven, Weaver, and Tiny. Each of these can play both as a support and as the main ADC, and it's up to the player each match to decide what path they will take. What about Marci? She was released with a fling, an ally-enabled AoE nuke, and the ability to buff ally damage. After some experimentation, where did she end up? If you said yes, you got it right. Even now, and I kid you not, Marci is played in every single role. When Valve saw that Marci was being played more as a support, they made patches that enabled that playstyle. When she became a common ADC, tools came out to let her scale that way. At every turn of the meta, the developers were there with 2 thumbs up, saying we can play her any way we want. Many Dota heroes have seen this treatment over the years, and by now most of them can play in at least 2 or 3 roles pretty well. Medusa, a tank marksman ADC, recently won a tournament as a support. Io, who's basically Yumi, won a world championship as the carry.
You can do a million things, and everything can work.
Switching over to the champions of League, you know what I'm gonna say. Every champion is released with a designated role. They are designed to fit that assigned playstyle, and usually if a second role sees more success than the primary, it gets nerfed. Support champions sometimes have abilities that only function with an ally around. Top lane tanks have damage scaling with armor purchases. Junglers sometimes get perks like bonus damage to specifically jungle monsters. Sometimes you see a champion played in the off role so much that the developers will cave. It's not that flex picks don't exist in League, but more that a champion being equally proficient in more than 2 roles is nearly unheard of. In this way, League does not let you choose the role your champion plays.
It helps maintain the illusion.
This game, you're going to play an Enchanter support. As a support in Dota, you have to choose your starting items based on how you intend to play. Will you buy extra regeneration to counter poke and keep your ally alive? Or maybe you'll get some stats and damage to take on more aggressive trades. Perhaps you're on a courier hunting mission. Pick your gear as needed. League instead forces you to play with a dedicated support item called World Atlas. It is by far the most efficient support item you can get, giving you stats, gold income, and one free item later on. The game is designed around you having this item as a support. Even if it wasn't forced on you to buy it, you'll probably want to anyway. It's not only the support that can't choose their starting loadout. The jungler in League has a similar feature, where they must buy a jungle item first. What's more, if you aren't a jungler, you cannot buy this item, and if you aren't a support, you can't buy the World Atlas. These items are extremely efficient for the role they are made for, but this comes at the sacrifice of player choice. The game's first few minutes. After a moment of securing space in the jungle, you need to head to a lane. Just be careful if you're playing League.
My lord, Gandalf the Grey is coming. He's a herald of woe.
The courtesy of
The top lane.
is somewhat lessened of late.
He's not welcome.
Why should I welcome you?
There are heavy penalties if you go to the wrong lane for an early gank. Things like golden XP losses and super enemy towers. It's a new system added to prevent supports from choosing how to lane. Off to the bot lane with you. If you're a Dota support, feel free to try lane for a moment if your carry is playing safe. You can join him for free with the twin gates and leave just as easily. Anyway, laning stage. Your job right now is to get more golden experience than the other team. Aside from ganks, what else can you do here? In both League and Dota, the main laning strategies are wave management, zoning, and vision control. Players from both games will know what a freeze, a push, and a bounce are. But in Dota, since the creeps aren't tied to the lane, you can aggro them into the jungle so they just kill themselves. Or take them on a grand tour and avoid a straight lane altogether. And all this time, there are jungle camp spawns to contest, healing lotuses to collect, camps to stack, and more. You can't control all the laning resources, so you must choose what to prioritize. Supports truly have the hardest job at this point of the game, no doubt. Throughout the laning stage of both games, you get gold, contest vision, maybe even go for a gank. After a while, it's time for the early game to end and for the laning stage to slowly dissolve. Except not really in League. I've studied many pro games, and the truth is laning stage never seems to end. There might be an occasional clash for an objective or grouping for a push, but this never seems to last, and soon people will split up into their lanes and a jungler again. I think League is designed around the laning stage not really ending, and the lanes just shifting around a bit. If you do try and end the laning stage, for example by sending the ADC to farm the jungle or the support to farm mid, then you're probably grieving. The design of mid-game is truly an illusion of choice, when only one playstyle is optimal. Is that really freedom of play? Dota's mid-game is exactly the opposite. It's impossible to predict with certainty what will happen after the laning stage ends. One game your ADC goes jungling while support takes over mid, and the mid and off laner go and start ganking people. The marksman might split push one game, and the support does so in the next. It could be that the support will start jungle farming their next item, or assassinate the ADC. And at any moment, a fight can erupt over no objective at all. Watch any set of Dota games, and you'll find there's not really much of a pattern. Dota's mid-game is very open-ended. Reading the game state and choosing a strategic goal is skill expression. As the game progresses, basic items get purchased and it's time to consider item builds. I want to introduce a term here called the solved hero. A solved hero is a hero champion that, game to game, maintains nearly identical item choices and item progressions. There might be one or two items that differ in the build, but if half the late game items are identical, it's probably a solved hero. A good example of this in Dota is the hero Anti-Mage when playing in the carry role. He'll go Power Treads, Battle Fury, Manta Style, and Basher every time. Another solved hero is Legion Commander, who in the offlane will go for Phase Boots, Blade Mail, and Blink Dagger. In total, Dota suffers from perhaps 30% of the heroes being solved, maybe more on a stale patch. This seems like a lot, and it is, but still 70% of the heroes offer a high amount of item flexibility. Contrast that to League, and the number of solved champions is just wild. To get a glimpse of the whole, let's take a look at the slice of the champion stats on op.gg, a meta tracking website. We'll just take a look at the champions beginning with A. The first 3 or 4 non-boot items are all similar or identical, and often the boots are identical as well. Nearly every champion is solved. The stats are very clear. League favors the solved champion metagame, whether by accident or design. As such, experimentation, or the expression of freedom of play, is frowned upon and even reportable. What I find interesting is that as both games progress into late game, the freedom of play extends equally. Game patterns fall apart, roles flex and bend, and counter items start dominating. You might be doing Drake when you notice the split push. Maybe you smoke for an initiation advantage. I love the late game in MOBA, because when you win, and you know it was your strategy that secured victory, oh, there's no better feeling than that. And so we conclude our tour of freedom of play. I've covered so many differences in the games, and will continue doing so in the future. But this is the most important one. If ever people ask you which game to play, or how they compare and you can only share one video, share this one. There are a lot of people that like to focus on skill and micro that League offers, and just as many that crave the tactical freedom Dota provides. And there's no better example of the freedom of play than the freedom to play what you want. There is one thing that League players can choose in their games that Dota players cannot. In League, you can choose to give up.